Hi there, welcome back to my channel. This is Manuki Gaming. First things first, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to make another video. I enjoyed making the last one and it was purely something that I just wanted to do, so I didn't really expect anyone to watch it. And same with this one, really. It's not really for anyone else's entertainment but my own. I was thinking about it for a while, whether or not I wanted to make this video. And I knew it was going to be a lot of work, a lot more work than the previous one, which was very lazy and badly done. And then I recorded everything before patch 7 because I had this horrible inkling that because of the mods that I was using, I was just going to be completely bricked out of all my saves. So I finished my previous save that I was on, recorded all of these in my various other epilogue saves and things like that. And then, lo and behold, patch 7 dropped and I cannot access any of them, even my unmodded saves, which I completely expected, so I'm not complaining. You know, I did have a bunch of mods and some of them, unfortunately, they're just not going to be compatible with patch 7, so it kind of does mean that I just can't get back into them. It's a risk I've obviously taken by adding so many mods in the game. As you'll see, I have modded a lot of these characters, so I'm not complaining about it at all. This is something that I made a choice to do and I knew it was going to happen, but because of that, it kind of spurred me on to make this, because then I was like, oh, it can kind of be like me remembering all of the characters that I've made that I obviously will never be able to go back to again. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy. So first things first, I wasn't sure about ranking them and I made the decision not to, but it's pretty much, I'm just going to be talking about all the different endings for the Origin Companions in Baldur's Gate 3. I'm kind of going to be talking about all the things that I like about the endings, all the things that I don't like about the certain endings, things that, you know, it could have been better. There's obviously some that fall flat and some that are really well done. This isn't going to be relating to any of the evil endings from patch 7, because I'm purely focusing on how the Origins as companions end up, and as well, this will also be when you've destroyed the brain, because then you truly get to see the characters in the epilogues and see how they're flourishing or not flourishing. And yeah, I just thought it would be kind of fun to delve a bit into that. I've basically seen every single one now. I also just wanted to point out that most of my characters that I've played have been the Dark Urge, so while there aren't too... actually, if you don't know anything about the Dark Urge, there are going to be some big spoilers in this, so I would highly recommend that you not watch, and obviously as well, if you've not finished the game, if you've not done certain routes and you want to do them, and you don't want to be spoiled, obviously, big spoiler alert, this video is going to have spoilers. So yeah, without further ado, I have started off with Shadowheart.
You feel a little more substantial than before. Less camping and scrounging off the land, I take it? Same. In fact, I found a nice meadow not far from where I live now. Every now and again, I'll spend the night there. For old time's sake. I'm glad you seem well. Trudy. I had no doubt, but I'm glad to hear you say it all the same. Wandering, mostly. The adventuring life is almost a tonic when you're not constantly threatened by brain monsters and cultists. I can finally see the world beyond the cloister. One of my first stops was the House of the Moon in Waterdeep. It's the largest temple of Selûne in existence. It seemed like the perfect spot to reflect on my parents, on where they came from. And where I came from too, I suppose. Hard to imagine, isn't it? Me, of all people, in the lair of the Moon Witch herself. God, your truest act of heroism was putting up with all that char and drivel I was spouting for so long. Oh, I know they are. I can still sense them, I think. And one day we'll be reunited. Well, I've had run-ins with my former fellow Sharans on a couple of occasions. Word seems to have spread of what happened at the cloister. Now other chapters of Shar worshippers see me as a prime target to offer up to their lady as a sacrifice. Don't worry. I know their tired old tricks better than anyone. They'll need more than a hooded cloak and poisoned blade to best me. Especially when I have a friend on the inside keeping me abreast of their predictable little plans. None other. The matter of her faith and allegiances remains complicated, let's say. But she is still my oldest friend. I have hopes that perhaps she might turn from Shar entirely given time. But that's a decision she will have to make for herself. If that day comes, I'll be ready.
So I've been really back and forth on the longest time with Shadowheart as to whether or not her best ending is sacrificing her parents or sacrificing, ever being free of Shar and always having to deal with the wound. And I think I like this ending because she's got she brings up Nocturne and her relationship with her and their friendship, and how Nocturne's kind of keeping her aware of the Sharans that are chasing her. However, it does very much feel like she's still got to live, on high alert all the time. She's going to Selûnite temples and learning about her history and her religion and the religion of her parents. So she's really learning about herself and her family, but I think to have that be such a driving force for her throughout, the end of Act 2 and all of Act 3, it does seem a little bit like, the girl really deserves some peace. So I think I'm going to have to say this is a nice ending, and yes, her being free of Shar is probably beneficial in a lot of ways for her. However, I do think that she seems a lot happier in the next ending when she does have her parents with her. I also think a lot of people choose this ending because she is free of Shar if she doesn't have the wound. However, because she mentions that they're following her and trying to track her down and she's become such a target of Sharans, she's not free of Shar in this ending. So I think if you were to weigh up, would she rather have her parents and a wound on her but be quite safe and have them to kind of be a support system for her and live her little cozy life, versus, do you want to not have this wound that's going to hurt you occasionally, but you're being chased and targeted and you're completely alone? Ultimately, I don't think she's really free of Shar in the way that a lot of people say that she is in this ending, and her speech here really, demonstrates that.
I found a little cottage. Abandoned, half ruined. There's a lot of such places to be found thanks to the Absolute's armies. I've been making it my own. It's harder work than I'd expected, actually. I'll never take vegetables for granted after all the effort it's taken to grow a few, but still. It's mine. Well, mine and the lodger's. 4 dogs, 8 cats, 9 chickens, 6 pigeons, 4 sheep, a milk cow named Daphne, a squirrel who's far too clever for her own good, and a wolf cub I found orphaned in some woods. He's just a frightened little pup. He has no idea what he'll grow up to be. And maybe, with me there to guide him, who knows what he'll become. It's amazing what can happen with the right nurturing. I've called him Buttons. because he has different colored eyes like buttons on a ragdoll. Healing. Learning to live again. It's hard to think of all that was robbed from them, but they're intent on making every day count for double. My mother's mind still drifts every now and again, but she has more good days than not so good days. She taught me her recipe for apple and plum pie, and when I tasted it, I actually remembered it from when I was a little girl. Some things can't be taken from you, it seems. Father's making himself useful, helping me fix up the cottage and caring for the animals. His wolf form is very useful in helping Buttons to acclimatize. I think part of him wishes I'd ended up as a lycanthrope as well. Sorry, I'm rambling. Family life and pastry recipes probably aren't the most interesting topics for such a historic reunion. I couldn't have said it better myself. Just be sure to take your own advice whenever you can. You've earned it.
So, as I said with the last one, this ending feels the most right for Shadowheart. I think her being able to live a cozy life with her parents and finally be able to really get that relationship back with them and be able to live kind of a normal life with them again is all she wants throughout the end of the game. And she seems so happy in this one. She's laughing, she's joking, she's got so many jokes from her dad. It seems like they're able to heal from the trauma despite obviously how awful it was. So again, a lot of people justify killing Shadowheart's parents because they're like, oh well, they're too traumatized. And I mean, it's kind of an ableist opinion to have, to think that people can't live with trauma and can't overcome it. And I do think that they ultimately do seem like they're getting into a place where they can be a normal family again. And well, maybe not entirely normal, but obviously at a point where they can really start to heal and you know, having a little farm, being able to just be a completely normal and secluded person. And I love giving her the owlbear for this reason. Like, okay, give it to Halsin, but I don't know, I just feel like giving Shadowheart the owlbear is like a nice little, you know, she's already got so many animals, she might as well just have one more. So yeah, this is my favorite good ending for Shadowheart. I think she seems really happy, she seems like she's really, you know, overcome everything and is just living her best life and doesn't have to worry about the pressures of saving the world or, you know, helping people. She can just kind of be, and I think that that's something her character arc definitely deserves.
Lady Shah's blessings to you. Or perhaps you don't need them. You look well. I couldn't agree more. Lady Shah's holy work is all-consuming. I doubt I'd manage without a featherbed to turn to. Her entire church prospers. The Absolute washed the Sword Coast with blood and tears. It's now a fertile ground for her message to flourish. Broken hearts, shaken faiths, refugees without homes, former cultists without purpose. They can all become the Night Singer's children, with the right nudge. You should see how they flock to us. We spread like the night sky chasing the sun below the horizon. Thank you. But enough of that. I won't have it said that I'm not capable of enjoying a fine night with good company. Tell me what you've been doing. I won't pretend I'm not a little jealous. Lady Shah is a demanding mistress, as is her right to be. But a little calm and solitude would be a tonic. I suppose you'll be keen to do the rounds, with so many old acquaintances gathered. Do not let me hoard your time. But don't be such a stranger, either, in future. You know where to find me. I can always make some time for an old friend. One of the privileges of being in charge. Would that I could. But this is my life now. Lady Shah must come first. Always. Almost as busy as I am. Such rapid growth creates a good deal of work for a quartermaster. So many lost souls in need of dark cloaks. She has risen to the occasion, though, as I knew she would. Sometimes she fears the others will grow jealous, but I see her as a favorite. Well, it's true. I do. They can challenge me on the matter if they dare, though none are so bold. All-consuming. Endless decisions to make, underlings jockeying for your attention, threats from the outside, threats from the inside. There's times I miss when it was just our little group against the odds. Simplicity is a luxury that's drifted out of my reach, I'm afraid. But at least for tonight, I can have a taste of how it used to be. I shouldn't. But from time to time, yes. Holding the office she once held, standing within the shadow of Lady Shah herself, it complicates my feelings towards her. I came to see her as an adversary, an obstacle. But what recourse did she have? What did she see when she looked at me? A future in which she was discarded, where the reward for her service and sacrifice was to groom her own replacement. What transpired was the Dark Lady's will. If time rolled back, I would do the same thing all over again without hesitation. Yet, I am not without sympathy. What? A show of sincere affection? You're lucky none of my followers are around to witness this. Come here. Let's keep that our special secret. I have a reputation to maintain, you know.
Now, Shah in Shadowheart is where it gets a little interesting, because obviously this is not a good ending for her. It's quite disturbing, the cutscene that you have in the House of Grief in Act 3, so I think this one I'm more judging based on, you know, we're not going for morals here. I think the way that they handled this one is brilliant. I love that you get additional abilities with this one, although I will say I don't know how beneficial any of it really is with Shadowheart, because I always have her on like a Radiant build or a Thunder build, so it's not, I never really use any of the Dark Justicia stuff, so it doesn't really benefit me personally, but I do still think the cutscene is incredible. It's so chilling to see that, and then the way that she acts at the epilogue party, it's just strange to see her so happy and she's achieved all the goals that she wants, but you know that she seems like an entirely different person to the Selûnite Shadowheart that we've seen in the cutscenes before that. So it's a very strange one. She does still retain a part of her though, and I do like that despite the fact that she is so dedicated to Our Lady, she is willing to bend the rules when it suits her, and I like to think that shows that she does still have some level of, you know, doubting her convictions with this, you know, ending of hers. So she seems quite happy with Nocturne at her side. It's strange the way that Nocturne acts so differently depending on whether you meet her as with a Selûnite Shadowheart or a Sharian Shadowheart, because with the Selûnite Shadowheart, she does seem like, you know, she eventually wants to be free, but she doesn't feel brave enough to stand up to the rest of the Sharans yet, whereas in this ending, she's very happy to serve as Shadowheart's right hand. I think this ending is really good for an evil ending, and it's my favourite of the evil endings, and I really, really want to play a Shadowheart Origin just to do her evil ending, to really see it firsthand. I do enjoy this one. It's definitely not by any means my favourite ending for her, but I will say that it is enjoyable to do an evil route just to see how different she is. Also, the House of Grief is like a million times easier if you do have a Sharian Shadowheart, and I really do hate that fight, so I kind of have to give it some points for making that fight really, really easy.
Well, look who it is. My murderous little friend. What have you been up to? Fallen back into old habits? Ah, a sensible pastime indeed. You must tell me all about it sometime. I'm sure I'd find it fascinating. Cazador's mansion has become my palace, and played host to every kind of banquet and soiree and masquerade imaginable. And of course, has seen its fair share of hedonism, clandestine deals, and the occasional disappearance. Whatever it takes to build up my influence over those who matter. I'm spinning my web. Power grows slowly, but I have nothing but time now. Rather wonderfully, actually. I've been making all sorts of new friends. They're the kind of friends that would see me burn the first chance they get. But that's all in the nature of the game, isn't it? But the important thing is I am doing wonderfully. Finally having a life that's worth living. And who knows what's next? There's an entire world out there, ready for the taking. Perhaps the next time we meet, we'll have grander conquests to toast. I did miss you, you know. There is a sense of loneliness that comes with power. We did share a wonderful adventure, you and I. A pity to see it end in some ways. But we have great new lives stretching out before us, and great new adventures to go on. I will never forget the time we spent together, though. And I know you'll never forget me. Until...
Now, with Astarian's evil ending, I do not feel the same way as I do with Sharian Shadowheart. And I think it's because he's such an asshole when he's ascended. Don't get me wrong, I really do like Astarian, but I hate ascended Astarian so much. When I first did my first Dark Urge playthrough, I was playing with the idea of like romancing ascended Astarian, and then I ascended him and I was like, absolutely not, we're going back and you're going to be a spawn. Again, there are some good abilities like his Ascended Bite. He does get certain buffs like that, and they are more fitting than I think Shadowheart's, where I like never use them and I just always have her with different kit. You know, these can fit into any role that you really have Astarian in, so I do like that. However, yeah, he's such a pompous asshole. And I just really can't bring myself to like him in any way. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against doing evil runs. I enjoy them. But I just really don't like his character by this point. It's a disturbing cutscene. So yeah, I guess it has that in common with Shadowheart, and you do get certain buffs for it, which gives some kind of benefit to ascending him. But ultimately, I just don't think it's worth it for him to act like this.
Well, look who decided to turn up. I wasn't sure our withered old friend could live up to his promise. But here we are. And you're looking more delicious than ever, if you don't mind me saying. Whatever you've been doing with your time, it clearly worked wonders. Love is a powerful tonic. And where better to celebrate our good fortune? An old haunt with old friends. Exactly what I feared. Without the protection of our little friends, I was just an ordinary spawn again, burning in the sun. I fled the dock and found refuge in the shadows until night fell. Part of me was relieved you left so quickly after the battle. I felt ashamed. Like I'd lost everything. Just as you claimed your victory. I didn't want you to see me like that. But time lent perspective. It wasn't your victory, it was ours. And for all I'd lost, I'd gained so much more. I had freedom, strength, a whole new life. And it was time to live it. I've taken a turn as an adventurer and hero. It turns out no one actually cares about murder, as long as you murder the right people. And apparently I'm rather good at it. Let's not get carried away, darling. I'm still me. Perhaps more me than I've ever been. Hardly. Good people don't spend as much time lurking in the dark as I do. You know, it's funny. At first, I thought I was trapped by the shadows, cursed to live in them forever. But in time, I realized that darkness is as much a part of me as my fangs. This is only a curse as long as I refuse to embrace the shadows. So, I decided I would. I decided not to be defined by the choices other people made, by what other people did to me. My past may be done, but my present, my future, they're mine. This is who I am, in all my glory, for better and for worse. That being said, I haven't completely given up on returning to the sun. If the opportunity presented itself, well, I wouldn't say no. But until then, I am happy. We've had quite the journey, you and I. From the moment I first threatened you, I knew you were someone special. Someone to take on the world with. I will miss our time together. But then again, maybe this isn't goodbye. So much as it's, see you later, darling.
Now I'm splitting up Astarion into kind of two different choices again, as I've done with all the other good endings. With this one, the epilogue and the things he says don't really change, so I've just kind of taken the cutscenes from the moment where you actually choose to do it. I'm going to quickly show you the cutscene for release a spawn and then kill a spawn, and then talk about both.
You killed one vampire, but released 7,000 of his spawn. Have you lost all sense?
They were innocents. To kill them would have been an even greater crime.
And our children, what of their fate?
Cazador turned everyone we brought him into spawn. I can only assume your children were somewhere in those wretched cells. You'll find them in the Underdark, although you may not like what you find.
This is difficult news. We will need to decide what it means. Thank you for what you have done. Slaying Cazador was a great justice. As for the rest, well, time will tell.
Now, my initial thought when I first played this was that, releasing the spawn was always going to be a given. They deserve the same chance as Astarion and the others do. It doesn't matter the circumstances they've been in, and I do enjoy the ending, especially the romance ending for Astarion, where you go with him to the Underdark and lead the rest of the spawn and kind of look out for them. So this initially was like always my go-to. I never, up until I just did this to record this, I had never killed the spawn just because I didn't think they ever deserved it. I do like the letter that you get from the girl saying thank you at the end. However, they are not all that appreciative in this cutscene, and I get that it's difficult news for them to take in. However, I'm going to show you the next one, and then you kind of decide which one do you think they truly feel a little more grateful in.
You killed not only Cazador, but also his wretched creations. I expected less.
So I can see from all your heavily armed friends, you didn't think I could resist completing the ritual, did you?
I admit, I had my doubts.
But where are our children? What of their fate?
I don't know for sure, but Cazador turned everyone who brought him. I can only assume that included your children.
So when you destroyed the spawn, you killed them too?
They died long before we arrived. Trust me. They were not the children you knew.
Perhaps. But the choice should still have been ours. You have taken them from us twice now.
I have. I've stolen your last chance to see them. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because anything else would mean sending you down into the dark. It means showing you the hunger in your babe's eyes and leaving you with that terrible final decision. I visited enough pain on your people. The least I could do was spare you that.
Perhaps there was something to that. A kindness I would not have credited you with.
Well, that's backhanded as compliments come, though I'll take it if it means you're done trying to kill me.
I never dreamt a spawn could find redemption. But, yes, you will never be hunted again.
As for you, you have my people's thanks. I know you face trials ahead. We will stand with you as best we can. Until then, go in peace. And thank you.
So yes, with this one, I'm still not sure if it's going to be the option that I choose going forwards. However, I do think that the way that Ulma thanks you is completely different when you kill them. Obviously, she is upset at first, and then the compassion that Astarion kind of shows in how he says, you know, I didn't want to leave you with that terrible final decision. I mean, I kind of understand it, right? Like, we have to consider that they're children, and children at the best of times, normal children, do not have concepts of things like emotional regulation and impulse control and things like that. And I'm assuming they would forever be children, so it's not like they're going to grow up now that they're spawned. They're going to forever be these vampire children terrors, right? So I think the fact that you have to choose between giving children that kind of fate and saving people like Sebastian, who are maybe older and could learn to control themselves a little better, I think this is still... It really shows that level of compassion that Astarion has in that way of, yes, just because I have changed doesn't mean we should just let 7,000 vampires spawn onto the Underdark. So yeah, I think overall, I'm not sure which one's better, but I certainly don't think that it should always be, you know, release the spawn now after seeing how that actually plays out, you know?
Well met. I am a magical projection of Gale of Waterdeep. And if you see this manifestation, that means I have prematurely perished. Alas, on this occasion I appear to have been erased from this plane in both soul and substance. So the usual protocol for revivification cannot be followed. I am, however, available for the duration of this spell to assist with the tying of any loose ends related to my recent departure from mortality. As I said, I am merely a projection of Gale. A highly accomplished one, reflecting my creator's flair for such magic. But in no way am I the great wizard himself. He is gone. The good news is I am here precisely to assist in cushioning that heaviest of blows. I have been entrusted with the delivery of a letter to be given to one who cared most for me in life. I hope these words do something to ease the tragedy of my untimely and honestly, quite unexpected passing. With that, I'm afraid my spell is waning. Is there anything else you need of me before I blink out of existence? How fortunate I was to know someone like you.
I'm glad for it. For this.
Oh, right. You. Hello. Yes, I'm certain it is. As for you, well, I've heard congratulations are in order. You helped Mr. Dekarios save Baldur's Gate from the Absolute, isn't that right? I can almost feel Gale here. Among his friends. In you. Some part of him remains, doesn't it? A crackling in the air, isn't it? That flare of magic and mischief. Oh, what I wouldn't give to snuggle up on his lap one more time. Just once would do. Oh, I couldn't possibly. Unless, well, perhaps it's not a terrible idea. Gale would be quite pleased to know we've made friends, wouldn't he? Perhaps you'd be willing to come meet Gale's mother sometime? She misses him so. And I know it would do her heart a world of good to discuss her son with someone who knew him as he was. Jolly good. I'll tell Mrs. Dekarios to be expecting you. Oh, she'll be delighted. Things just haven't been the same without himself cluttering up the place. Enjoy your party, dear. I've heard you quite deserve a celebration.
Okay, so in my first playthrough, I didn't really like Gale as a character that much. So I was really bad at the game, and I did blow him up. I just couldn't do the final fight. I was playing on Explorer, and I was really bad, and I played on Explorer for, like, my first 3 runs. And despite the fact that I didn't really like the character, and I didn't think I'd care that much about blowing him up, when I actually saw this scene in the epilogue, I was honestly heartbroken. So it was kind of wild to me that, in spite of the fact that I didn't like the character very much, this scene really hit me emotionally in the way that it probably would if I did actually like the character, and it gave me this whole other perspective on, you know, Gale, and, you know, the letter he gives you, and talking to Tara, and it's really heartbreaking. So while I do think that blowing up Gale is an option that is reserved for those, like, you're either bad at the game and you don't want to do the final fight, or you can't do the final fight, like me, like I used to be, or also like me, you're on your honor mode run and you're terrified of failing the final fight, the last hurdle, and failing your run at that point, so you just blow him up, which is completely fair. Honestly, anything can happen in honor mode, so it is a sad ending, and while I understand the appeal in those kind of situations, I don't think it's an option people would necessarily choose besides that. So I'm really sorry, Gale, R.I.P., but well done, Larian. You really, really nailed the emotional impact of this one.
Goodness. Was Faerun always so dull? Still, at least the company was worth the trip, if not the view. I'm forgetting my audience. Etiquette amongst the gods works rather differently. They're a lot more direct, shall we say. I imagine you're wondering how all this came to be. The finer points of divine ascension are beyond mortal comprehension, I'm afraid, but I can provide a rudimentary sequence of events. First, I retrieved the crown of Karsus and reforged it using a series of precise and highly complex Netherese incantations. Then, I used it. As you know, the orb within me was the half-formed Karsite Weaver. Magic left incomplete by Karsus' self-destruction. I finished it. Using the crown of Karsus, I turned it into a new form of magic, fused with my being, driven by my purpose. And then I put it to work. As expected, Mystra was unwilling to hand over the reins of the weave, so I've claimed dominion over another area which I've passing familiarity. Ambition. I offer them nothing. I inspire them to seize their destinies for themselves. Great as the heights I've reached thus far may be, I've not forgotten my humble origins. In fact, they're central to my doctrine. Those drawn to the Galarian Creator merely seek my guidance as the impressive, all-powerful being I've become. Ambition is about beginnings. It's not just about the heights, but the lows that preceded them. I was nothing. A drifting dust mote of a wizard, abandoned by my goddess, my powers lost, my reputation destroyed. And look at me now. I'm their proof. Proof their hopes are not barren wastes, but the loamy soil in which their future achievements will flourish. Proof that with ambition, anything is possible. You see? Now you're realizing your true potential. You, and many more by the day. There are already several shrines in my honor scattered across the outer reaches of Thay, and rumors of a very prominent temple under construction in Arm. This is only the beginning. Don't worry. With the ambition you hold, you'll never be too far from my sights. Pursue your dreams, and keep me in your prayers, and who knows? They might just get answered. To be a god.
Well, there he is. Gale in all his glory. I hope you're happy, the god of ambition. Have you ever heard anything more ridiculous? Ambition, aspiration, greed and hubris is all I hear. The Gale I knew wasn't like this. He recognized his mistakes. He was contrite. All he wanted to do was live. Unfortunately, he fell into company that turned his gaze toward foolishness. Yes, I mean you. Then you're just as mad as he. I know there's nothing you could have done to stop him. Not really. Once he'd decided to learn nothing from his mistakes, what use were either of our protests? Perhaps you'd be willing to come meet Gale's mother sometime? She misses him so, and I know it would do her heart a world of good to discuss her son with someone who knew him as he was. Jolly good. I'll tell Mrs. Dekarios to be expecting you. Oh, she'll be delighted. Things just haven't been the same without himself cluttering up the place. Enjoy your party, dear. I've heard you quite deserve a celebration.
So with the God Gale path, I think some of the reasons I dislike it are the same reasons as why I dislike Ascended Astarion, and it's ultimately that they're both just two pompous assholes at the end. I do have to say that it's very interesting to see, and I personally have never got that cutscene. I don't know if it's exclusive to Origin Gale, actually. The one where you promise Raphael the crown, and then he shows up and Gale is just like, I'm a god now, so you can't have it, go away. And it basically just undoes your contract with him anyway, which is fine. So that's kind of like an interesting get out of jail free card with that. Although, to be honest, Raphael does not do a damn thing if you don't give him the crown in any of the endings. So, again, also, because it happens after the end of the game, you don't really get any benefit from doing this, other than, seeing Gale being as evil as Gale can be, really. I think, obviously not every ending has benefits. It does kind of seem like obviously Gale was never going to be a god before the end of the game, because you'd have to finish the game in order to get to this point. But, there's not that much interesting with it, because it does happen right at the very end and you don't really see much of a build-up. And I think similar to Will's endings as well, but it's a little better with Gale, is that this kind of comes out of the left field a little bit in Act 3, and there's also Sneaky God Gale, who really comes out of left field. I do think maybe this could have been done a little better, but it's an interesting character arc, I'll say that, and yeah, he does look cool, so.
Oh well, look what the Tressim dragged in. Professor Gale Dekarios of Blackstaff Academy, educator of the esteemed School of Illusion. A pleasure to remake your acquaintance. Well, that was quite lovely. I'm glad you're as pleased to see me as I am you. I have to say, I'm quite grateful to just be Gale for the evening. I fear my students find me somewhat intimidating due to my, explosive former reputation. I seem to put the fear of the gods into them. Or the fear of Mystra, to be more specific. I surrendered the crown of Karsus to her, as I told you I would. And in return, she cured me of the orb at last. Even now, I struggle to put the feelings into words. It was like exhaling for the first time after holding my breath for so very long. Of course, I haven't clarified with my students that the orb is no longer a threat. The legend of my explosive capabilities is an excellent means of controlling a classroom. Too good, if anything. I spend most of my time trying to convince them how much fun the study of magic can be. But it'd be easier to crack a smile on an intellect devourer than some of my pupils. Illusory magic has the power to confound the senses, to render the impossible into reality, and to allow expression of that most magical attribute of all: imagination. Unfortunately, in that respect, some of my apprentices seem to be rather lazy. Oh, they try their best, of course, when they can manage to stay awake. And what of you? What are you making of this newfound lease of life we earned?
Okay, with Teacher Gale, I guess, again, this is something I feel similarly to a Selûnite Shadowheart living with her parents kind of vibes, you know? I feel like this is a man who has had too much about him be interesting and just needs to kind of live a boring life. Yeah, I think it's nice to see him be settled, obviously, hopefully not intervening with any further gods and things like that. Obviously, I know it's kind of Mistra's thing to fraternize with her chosen, but this is a man that just needs to be somewhere quiet and not have to worry about being interesting and messing with the divine or anything like that. I think it suits him. And, you know, obviously it's a good ending because Mistra does cure him of the orb, so he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He gets his, you know, forgiveness from her and closure, I hopefully assume. And, yeah, he just seems like he's happy living his rather normal life. And I like as well that he's one of the few companions that you can give a hug platonically. I wish you could do that with all the companions, but yeah, it's nice. It's nice that you do get that option with some of them. So yeah, I do like this ending for Gale. It's not super interesting, but I think that's kind of nice with this cast of very interesting characters to have a lot of their good endings be just being normal people again.
There you are, my friend. Breathe deep. Can you smell it?
You take in every scent the night breeze carries. Sweet honeysuckle, tender violets, and an earthy fragrance you can't quite recognize.
Forest trees draped in moss. Bittersweet, smoky, and that faintest hint of vanilla. A far cry from the rancid Avernus heat that's been clogging my lungs. I swear, the three of us have felled enough cambions to build a fortress with their horns. Who'd have thought that just one of those fiends held the key to escaping Avernus for good? If those blueprints work, we might be able to fix Karlach, and she might be able to go home to Faerun. I think the splinters I made out of the last bone devil I saw speak for themselves. Not to pat myself too hard on the back, but I'm not such a bad ranger if I do say so myself. I've seen him more than a few times, and he's as proud of me as I am of him. He's leading the city's renewal, opened the gates to all newcomers, rebuilt the council from scratch. And he's back in his element, commanding the Flaming Fist with brave heart and no shortage of empathy. The likes of Gortash can bend people's minds with a few chosen words. No tadpole needed. Bane's chosen primed the Fist for a war they weren't meant to win. He convinced them there was an assassin hiding in every shadow, that cruelty was the correct answer to crisis. With a few exceptions, fathers pardoned every last fist. If my forgiveness not be Tyr's will, so be it. I shall forgive them all the same. His words, not mine. He still believes in the bow and the blade, but with Floric's help, he's teaching the fist a new lesson. Valor is found not in the wounds you inflict, but in the lives that you have bettered. May they all take it to heart. Well, that's enough hell talk for the moment. The night's young. You shouldn't go wasting it. Or wasting any of the wine for that matter. I plan on downing half a bottle myself. Oh, did I say half a bottle? I meant half.
So, don't get me wrong here. I absolutely adore Will. I think he's a really great character. I love his romance. I know a lot of people kind of complain about his romance, that there's not like a lot of, there's no spicy scenes, to put it mildly. And it's very like vanilla, very cutesy, very wholesome. I really appreciate that about Will's character. I think that, there are people who are very traditional in that sense, and Will, of course, is going to be the most obvious choice to give this kind of personality, because obviously he comes from nobility. It makes sense that he's like this, and I love it. And I genuinely think that his romance and everything is so sweet, and I do really love his story. And generally speaking, I do love this ending for Will and Karlach, because I think the cutscene is really good, especially when you go with them to Avernus. I love the additional cutscene. It just looks amazing. It's short, but it's just like a really great addition to their story. My biggest gripe with Will in this way is that his story is kind of tied entirely to Karlach. And as well, I'm not going to talk too much on the next ending, because this is Will outside of the pact, which I think is the only real acceptable choice for him, because you can save his dad and still break his pact. Like, there's no reason for him to still be tied to Mizora. But I'm not going to talk too much on the second part of this, because there's not really any major difference between them. And there's not even any major difference between his epilogue in the Duke path either. And I think it's really a shame, to be honest, that Will has so little content, and the content that he does have is just recycled. So it's really hard, as much as I love him, to talk about these scenes and these endings in a unique sense, because they're not really all that unique, and this kind of feels like the only acceptable choice for Will, because he is so integrally tied to Karlach and her story that, if you want Karlach to live and like not be a mind flayer, then you kind of have to pick this choice. And it's a shame that he's basically just, all of his story is hijacked by a character that it has more content and is kind of considered more interesting, when he's such a good character. And I do think it is entirely centered around racism and the fans just hating early access Will because racism. So I love this ending as a whole, and I think it's a fantastic ending. I just feel so bad that Will has no narrative agency of his own, and even his own storyline is pretty much him just being a supporting character for Karlach, and it's just a shame. He has so much potential, and yeah, I'm just rambling now, but these are my opinions on Will. So yes, Will go to Avernus, break the pact is obviously the only correct ending for Will, honestly. But also it's a shame that the reasons why this is the only correct ending aren't for him necessarily. So
she's kept me on a long leash, if you can believe it. Every target she's set me on's been a demonic intruder. Tenari assassins who slip into Avernus, Armonites that amass near the Styx. My next target's the most challenging yet, or so she says. I don't know much more, only that it's no demon, but a devil. I'm not worried. Not when Karlach's got my back. I swear she could scare the eyes off a beholder. I've seen him more than a few times, and he's as proud of me as I am of him. He's leading the city's renewal, opened the gates to all newcomers, rebuilt the council from scratch. And he's back in his element, commanding the Flaming Fist with brave heart and no shortage of empathy. The likes of Gortash can bend people's minds with a few chosen words. No tadpole needed. Bane's Chosen primed the Fist for a war they weren't meant to win. He convinced them there was an assassin hiding in every shadow, that cruelty was the correct answer to crisis. With a few exceptions, fathers pardoned every last fist. If my forgiveness not be Tyr's will, so be it. I shall forgive them all the same. His words, not mine. He still believes in the bow and the blade, but with Floric's help, he's teaching the Fist a new lesson. Valor is found not in the wounds you inflict, but in the lives that you have bettered. May they all take it to heart. Well, that's enough hell talk for the moment. The night's young. You shouldn't go wasting it. Or wasting any of the wine for that matter. I plan on downing half a bottle myself. Oh, did I say half a bottle? I meant half a dozen.
Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because there's not really much of a difference between the two endings, which I guess you can't really argue as a content issue because it's the same thing with the Starium and the Spawn, and that was the choice I chose to compare for him, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But as I said before, this isn't really ever a good choice for Will because you can still save his dad, you can still kind of find a loophole around Mizora's deal with him and still get him out of the pact and save the Duke. And besides a couple, bugs, the game does still kind of register that you've done both those things. So yeah, there's not, unless you really want to make a martyr out of Will, which I guess you could argue there's a lot of sacrifice involved in every single one of the characters' good endings, and I think the ultimate main kind of storyline between everyone is everyone has a sacrifice that they have to make in order to lead a better life. So I suppose in that sense you could argue that this may be more fitting for Will narratively. Ultimately though, because there's no real consequence to not sacrificing himself, it's kind of just a silly choice all around, unless, like I said, you just want to make a martyr of Will. So yeah, I know it's kind of metagaming to save the Duke, but your character does say, oh, but we can still save him after you make the choice. So I guess you can kind of roleplay that your Tav or Dad or whoever had that thought at the time, but honestly, I'm not too against metagaming. It's your game, it's not D&D at the end of the day, it's your game. But yeah, that's all I say on this one.
So good to see you. It's been far too long. Hold on a moment. Do you smell that?
You take in every scent the night breeze carries. Sweet honeysuckle, tender violets, and an earthy fragrance you can't quite recognize.
Forest trees draped in moss. Bittersweet, smoky, and that faintest hint of vanilla. Reminds me of the Wilden Oak, the oldest and most storied tree in all of the Sword Coast. I haven't visited since the Absolute fell. Turns out, rebuilding a city requires more than a simple wave of a duke's hand. Bargains must be made, alliances must be forged, customs must be considered. Still, I make the decisions I see fit, the ones I think will restore the city to glory. I serve only Baldur's Gate, not a devil of the first hell. For the good, I like to think. Brick by brick, stone by stone, it started to heal. though I've met my fair share of challenges. The people know me as one of the champions who saved their beloved city. They know Ravengard blood flows through my veins. The patriarchs, the aristocracy, the councils of Waterdeep and Arm, their arms aren't so wide open. Still, there's no friction that can't be greased with a sly promise or a proposition. Disbanded, to be formed anew. I don't expect a soldier or street sweeper to see through the schemes of a tyrant like Gortash. But the city's lords and ladies were all too eager to abandon their oaths and bend the knee. Liara Porter is now Grand Duke of the Wilds, Sickle of Chult. Floric is now Grand Duke of the Crossing, the face of devotion. And I am Will Ravengard, Grand Duke of the Worm, Heart of the Gate. We will yet be four. Until such time and after, we will enact the will of the People's Parliament. Baldur's Gate is nothing without its citizens, both in the upper and lower. Our duty is to them, and only them. The jewel of the coast will shine ever bright, welcoming the weak and the weary from wherever they hail. We are building new housing, not just shanties, but homes where families can rest their heads, plant gardens, pursue happiness. Amazing what can be done when Parliament and the Council pressure the upper city elites to open their coffers. I'm sure the Silver Shields can make do without a few more jeweled crowns. I've entrusted the fist to Floric. She commands the Flaming Fist with as brave a heart as ever, and delivered them nary a scolding nor lashing. The likes of Gortash can bend people's minds with a few chosen words. No tadpole needed. Bane's Chosen primed the fist for a war they weren't meant to win. He convinced them there was an assassin hiding in every shadow, that cruelty was the correct answer to crisis. With a few exceptions, Florix pardoned every last fist. I will not make them drink the poison of my own resentment. Her words, not mine. Like my father, she believes in the bow and the blade. But she's teaching the fist a new lesson. Valor is found not in the wounds you inflict, but in the lives that you have bettered. May they all take it to heart. Of course. I've missed you too. The rush of battles we fought, the heart-to-hearts, the nights around the fire. The comfort of knowing I didn't face the unknown alone. If I had to do it all over again, and I'd rather not, to be clear, I can't imagine not having you at my side. Never. The hexes and eldritch blasts, losing them took getting used to. They left behind a cold abyss where fire once raged. So I stoked a new one. Now the burning comes from within me, not from the depths of Avernus. Go on, the night's young. You shouldn't waste a moment of it. Or waste a single drop of wine for that matter. I plan on downing half a bottle myself. Oops, did I say half a bottle? I meant half a dozen.
So, this is probably what you could, I guess, consider Will's most evil ending. I truly don't think it is that evil of an ending, to be honest, but in the way that, you know, it kind of fits with sacrificing the Duke, and it obviously comes hand in hand with sacrificing Karlach in some way. So obviously it's the bad choice. I don't necessarily think it makes him evil in any way. It's ultimately not really all that fitting to his character, and I kind of wish they had made it make sense a little bit, because when you come out of the fight with Ansor, Will, who has expressed zero interest in inheriting his father's title, is all of a sudden talking about, oh yes, I'll be the next Duke. And it's so strange, especially after defeating a dragon. You know, you'd think if anything that would make him more inclined to want to be an adventurer. And I think there should be more flags that you have to kind of get in order to trigger this response from Will, but it's just no matter what you do, Will is like, I'm going to be the Duke, and then you don't even have to persuade him or anything either way or the other. You simply say one line to him and this man just immediately goes, oh yeah, actually that's a silly idea, I'll just be the Blade of Avernus. And it's just, I love this game, but it highlights to me every time I play it how little Will has narrative agency, and I've said that already. But it's such a shame. He is just a doormat. And the one time he actually comes up with anything pretty much of his own accord, and that is strange. It's very, very odd. So yeah, also, like I said, they have basically reused pretty much his entire normal Avernus ending epilogue dialogue here, besides like a chunk in the middle. The start and the end are the exact same lines, and it's sad. It hurts my heart that they put so little, and I know it was because his character got changed towards the end of development, but still, I wish we had more Will content, and it breaks my heart that this is what we ended up with, because he's such a good character, and it's just such a shame. And yeah, this ending could have been so much better, and I would have loved it if they leaned into the early access personality for Will, but unfortunately they didn't. This is what we got, and it makes so little sense for his character that I'm just like, every time I do it, why would you do that, Will? Just because I agreed with you? It's strange. It's just, it doesn't flow, and it's odd, and it feels awkward, and I don't like it just for that.
Chuck. I never imagined we'd be standing toe-to-toe on this day, in this place. Nothing but allies, I always told myself. A necessary partnership. But in spite of every strained word, every barbed glance, seeing you brings me even more pleasure than taking a royal inquisitor's head. Were it not for you, I might not have known the value of partnership, connection. I found new allies now. New friends. People I trust and who trust me in return. We've heard of a Githyanki outpost hidden deep in Chult, the last of Vlaakith's Sword Coast strongholds. We mean to slay every last Sark and Kithrak. Perhaps the Challenger of Gods would care to join us. You always did have a great fire in belly. I'm glad to see you have kept it kindled. Now go, mingle while you can. That's the word, right? Mingle? There is plenty of time yet for slicing scalps and tasting blood.
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion, but I do think this is my preferred ending for Lae'zel, is to have her stay in Faerun. And I think a big reason for why I feel that way is after doing her romance. And in her Act 3 scene, she kind of talks about how she hates Faerun and she hates being there and everything about it, and she just wants to get on the astral plane and ascend and blah blah blah. And then after meeting you and forming that connection, she actually sees the beauty in Faerun and wants to stay, and feels kind of torn between the two worlds, I guess. And I think especially if you do free Orpheus, and either he becomes a mind flayer or someone else does, there's Orpheus or there's Voss that can lead the rebellion, as long as you don't kill Voss, of course. But hopefully you didn't. So there's other people to spearhead the rebellion, and there is a dialogue line that you can say to her in Act 3, which is basically like, you've devoted yourself to Orpheus's cause so quickly, but what about what you want? And she does reply with something along the lines of, Orpheus's freedom is my want and need, but once Orpheus is free, she's kind of not needed for the cause necessarily. And I think it's similar to how I feel, I guess, about Selûnite Shadowheart and staying with her parents. It's like, after all you've been through, is it so wrong for this character to have quite a normal life? And she doesn't even really have a normal life, because she still helps with the rebellion. Like she says, she's still helping in her own way in Faerûn, so she's never not helping the cause. But I think for her to be able to be around the people that she loves and the people she's formed these close bonds with, I think that's ultimately probably the better choice for her. And I think I have had her choose to stay in Faerûn without persuading her at the end. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to say this is probably my favourite ending for her, and not everyone will agree with me probably, but this is just how I feel. And I love Lae'zel, and I think it just feels right for her.
Thou searchest for the strongest warrior amongst thine band, Lae'zel, who ascended to the stars. And now she is gone. She has ascended. She is beyond. It is as she wished. It is as all Githyanki wish. I asked thee once, what is the value of a single life? For many of the Gith, it can be measured. A single evening's supper for the Lich Queen. To be ascended is to be consumed. Vlaakith's hunger has known the heads of 50,000 of her subjects. But Lae'zel was, perhaps, greater than the rest. I know not where Lae'zel of Kalir is. I cannot sense her presence. Perhaps thou could. Know this. Her courage never faltered, her soul never waned. She accomplished all she e'er sought out. If she had fallen in battle, she would never have known regret. If she'd been killed in her duty, she would have known herself true. If Vlaakith claimed her, it was Lae'zel's honor to be claimed.
Alternatively, this ending is not the good one for Lae'zel. And I think I have done it, obviously, but I really struggle to justify this, even in an evil ending, because it really makes no sense to go on the Blackith path. Like, everything is pointing Lae'zel towards, like, this is not who you want to follow, and there's really no reason for her to continue on that path. Having said that, I genuinely get chills from the cutscene where she goes to see Blackith and gets ascended, and I love that they added that in. I didn't want to do this ending for so long, and then someone told me on Reddit that there was a cutscene, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to see this for myself and actually do it. So I think it's phenomenal. I love additional cutscenes in games and things like that, so I think they did a really good job of that. And the dialogue that you have with Withers, he's very clearly trying to be positive and hopeful in as much of a way as a neutral character as Withers, I suppose, can. But it's so sad that he's like, I know not where she is. And he tries to put that positive spin on it of saying, you know, this is probably what she wanted at that point, which, yes, is very true. But, you know, did she have to? What were the benefits? And there really aren't any. Like, okay, yeah, you get Voss's sword, but compared to the things you get if you don't kill Voss and you don't let Lae'zel go on this path, it's just, it doesn't add up. And she's kind of hunted by her own kind either way, so really not much point to it. Also, you obviously have to free Orpheus in order to get her to, you know, fulfill her dream of killing him for Blackith. So, you know, you have to free Orpheus just to kill him after he's sacrificed everything for us. And then if you also give her the choice of what she wants to do after that, she will literally stay in Faerun anyway. So she'll kill Orpheus and then just stay, which is ridiculous to me. She's not in any way convinced of this path that she's on. And it's just sad. And yeah, I love the cutscene, but it doesn't outweigh the cons of this path, I guess.
For 2 months I trained the Knights of the Comet. For 2 more I skewered Kithraki bellies. And for 2 more yet, I traveled through Limbo. I never imagined we'd be standing toe-to-toe on this day, in this place. Nothing but allies, I always told myself. A necessary partnership. But in spite of every strained word, every barbed glance, seeing you brings me even more pleasure than taking a Royal Inquisitor's head. We've spilled blood, gained a foothold in the Astral, but still we need allies. And one beyond reckoning has made itself known. Zerith Minyaragith. No need to pretend. I know the word means little to you. Shraktalor is the capital of the Githzerai, an exiled people. Once kin with mine until the madness of civil war ripped out one sky into 2. Algish sent word of the rebellion to their god king Zerith Minyaragith through the cosmos. He's agreed to parley. It's fallen to me to secure an alliance. Exactly the reaction I expected. My blade is keen as ever. But it was you who showed me that a proper victory doesn't always require a razor-sharp edge. Sometimes, a sincere plea is more persuasive than a dagger against the neck. Minyaragith is an ascetic. He reached out in good faith. This is his way. It is in this spirit that I must meet him. And if he refuses, I carry on. Gravity pulls me in but one direction. I am the comet. I will not not rest until I burn Vlaakith's bones to ash and smash her phylactery to pieces. My people will be free. But you've heard that refrain before. Zealous, bossy, insistent. All part and parcel of my undeniable charm. Soon, when the comet has risen, when the Lich Queen has crumbled to dust, I miss this place. More to the point, I miss you. I wouldn't even deny it with Vlaakith's vorpal blade at my neck. Though, I'd rather it not come to that. Now go, mingle a bit. That's the word, right? Mingle. I'll be back one day. The Overgod himself couldn't keep me away.
So it's not necessarily that I dislike this ending for Lae'zel, and it is more just the fact that I do prefer her ending where she stays in Faerun. However, I still think this is a good ending for her. Ultimately, the last bits of dialogue she says do kind of allude to the fact that once she's done with all this, and hopefully once they overthrow Vlaakith, she can return to Faerun and, you know, spend more time with everyone again and reconnect with her friends. And I think that, you know, no matter what path she's on her good endings, she's always helping in some way with the cause. So I don't necessarily think ultimately that there's like a right or wrong with this one here. You know, at least if you keep Orpheus and Voss alive anyway, or either or. This is a cause that's important to her, and I think it's really nice to see her, you know, be friendly and warm and also very stern and very dedicated to the causes and the things that she cares about and her goals in life. And ultimately, no matter what anyone says, I think Lae'zel does have probably the best character development in the whole game, right down to how her expressions change throughout the whole game. She develops this kind of warmth that's so foreign for Githyanki and the culture that she's familiar with. And I like the epilogue sequences like this because she shows her very stern, very stoic warrior attitude, but at the same time also displays this very warm demeanour, this very different demeanour to the one that we first meet. And I think she does really evolve very well with the storyline. And I just love Lae'zel. I think she is quite underrated, to be honest, which might be wild to say considering what I've said about Will, but I still think she doesn't necessarily get the love that she deserves, even if she's not as badly treated as Will by the fandom.
Shit. Oh my god! He wasn't kidding! Withers, you mad bastard! You brought me back! Soldier! It's really you! I've missed you, man. Like, I've really missed you! And you're so clean! War's a dirty business, soldier. It's been exactly how you'd think. But having Will around has been incredible. Fucker's even better at killing devils than yours truly. We don't have much time to chat, but just knowing he's there makes all the difference. Oh, but hey, guess what we found? Cambion dropped a map with directions and blueprints for Zariel's own private forge. A fucking forge! Our current plan is to get in, grab a smith, and force him to fix old Rusty. Or maybe give me a brand new model that can live outside of Ernest. You haven't seen the last of old Karlak yet, soldier. Trying not to count my owlbears before they've hatched. But the thought of coming back to Baldur's Gate keeps me going. Can I look you up when I'm out? Hey, that would be kind of fun, though. High stakes hide and seek. Honestly, I'd be curious to see if you could land a blow or two. Gods, is it good to see you again. To be here, together. Hard not to get used to it all over again. This won't be the last time. I promise.
Okay, so there's not a whole lot I can say about the Karlach Avernus ending that I haven't already said on Will's. Obviously, it's a phenomenal ending. Love the cutscene. And obviously, this is the only good ending for Karlach, really. However, while she does hijack every single one of Will's quests, pretty much, she doesn't really have much of a quest line of her own. Like, I suppose her final Act 3 moment is the Gortash fight, but you kind of have to do that anyway, and even if you don't kill him, as long as you don't bring Karlach with you when you go into Worm's Rock to show him Orin's Netherstone, then she doesn't really care that you haven't killed him, which, to be honest, if I was her, I'd be fuming, and I think that would probably be a point for me where I'd be like, okay, I know we're like right at the final moment now, but I'm out of here, you know, because he sold her to a devil and ruined her life, and she's just chill with allying with him. I don't know, it doesn't make much sense to me. So yeah, I love Karlach and I love her story and I love this ending, and it's the only good one for her. It sucks that her and Will are just a duo at this point. They aren't really separate. They don't really have separate characters, story arcs in the way that the others do, and it's a shame. But obviously Karlach has a lot more content than Will, so she's not the one that's been completely screwed over by this choice.
Ah, soldier. How glad I am to see you again. I'd started to wonder if I ever would. I'm sorry I haven't reached out. I guess I wasn't sure what you'd make of me. I've changed so much. But then again, you have too. True enough. Though in this form, nothing seems impossible. Your adventures with Lae'zel must be absolutely fascinating. Our victory against the Dead Three changed everything. For example, my favorite food used to be mutton chops. Do you know what it is now? Brains, soldier. Brains. True. But I've found ways to maintain my values while respecting that which I am. That which made it possible for me to live. I've made arrangements with a healer in the city. When a patient is beyond saving, but still able to speak for themselves, they're offered a choice. They can go as nature intends to take them, or when they're ready, when their goodbyes have been said, their affairs settled, and all that awaits them is pain, I relieve them. When I consume their brains, I am nourished by much more than the physical nutrition. Their memories, from birth to death, become part of me. I've lived hundreds of childhoods, first loves, marriages, feuds, and friendships. I remember them all. And in this way, we all live on together. Thanks, soldier. It's good to see you looking so well. And now that we've connected again, don't be a stranger. Enjoy the night, my friend. I know I will.
Okay, so obviously I did this ending for my Githyanki character because she was not sacrificing herself to become a Mind Flayer, and she was not sacrificing Orpheus. However, this is just a truly awful ending for Karlach, I think. On the one hand, I do like that there is at least some way to save Karlach if you can't do the answer fight, because it is a hard fight, and if you're bad at the game, you might struggle quite a lot with that fight. So it does give you like a nice out for that if you're not really familiar with the game and the mechanics and how to play. Ultimately, though, I think the way she describes like absorbing people's memories and brains is truly horrifying. And I'm completely for euthanasia. I'm very pro-choice in all things, but I don't know if this is it, besties. And I guess the game does try and put like a certain positive spin on maybe being a Mind Flayer isn't all so bad. Unfortunately, Larian, I'm gonna have to disagree with you. In my opinion, AMFAB, so it's heartbreaking. And she's not the same character. She sounds like a stoner. This is not my Karlach, and it's a shame. But I guess it's a way to avoid the answer fight, and it's a way to do the Duke path for Will without feeling like too bad of a person. But you should still feel bad, because Karlach does not deserve this. She does not. And it's a very sad ending.
We did it, soldier. The city's going to be all right. And so are you. Engine's finally cooked. Held on just long enough. So, how'd I do? So are you. My friend. My companion. I adore you. Careful! Hot! I never gave up. I did my best. I did my best. It's the one thing I can't beat, isn't it? I wanted to live in my city with my friends. But life is for the living. And I saw... Goodbye, son. Goodbye, sea. Goodbye.
No, stop. I won't allow this. Karlach, you're coming with me. Back to Avernus. We can't let her die. Not like this. Not now.
You can't.
I can't force her. But I don't want to watch either. I can't.
I'm ready. I stand back. I'm to
So we're ending on the most heartbreaking ending of all, at least in my opinion, because Karlach is such a good character. And of course, it's her blowing up. I do still think that this ending is ultimately better for her than the Mind Flayer ending, because I know she does spend the whole game pretty much prepared to die, except for obviously once you fought Gortash and she does start to get scared and angry, rightfully, that, you know, she doesn't feel like she has a future and she's surrounded by everyone who's fighting for theirs and to be able to live and save the world, and it's not going to make a difference for her. But I still think that she would probably prefer to die with dignity, surrounded by the people that love her, than have to live as a Mind Flayer and not even really be herself anymore, regardless of what Withers tries to tell you about Mind Flayers having souls when you turn into one. I think that just is kind of trying to butter you up for the fact that you made that decision, but it's not the right ending. And this, I hate that I've seen this ending so much because I was so scared of doing the answer fight for so long, but I have, and it breaks my heart every time, so it does hit all the emotional beats that it should, but it's such a sad ending, and comparing it to the Will and Karlach go to Avernus ending, there's really no alternative for either of them, unless you just purposely want to break your heart for no reason. And with that concludes my ramble about all of the Baldur's Gate 3 companion endings. I hope that's been somewhat enjoyable for some of you. I'm sorry that it's so long. Hopefully at least it gives some people like a chance to see all the endings and also hear someone's opinion on it as someone who's done them all. My completely factual and 100% objective opinion, by the way. So thank you if you've made it this far, and I really appreciate the view and you listening to me ramble. And I said in my last video I probably wasn't going to make any more videos, but I mean, I made this one and it's a long one, so I probably will. I'll just need to think of some other things I want to talk about. But yeah, thank you so much for your support, and leave me a comment and we can debate. Although, of course, as I said, my opinion is the factual and objective one, so you're wrong if you disagree. I'm kidding, obviously everyone has an opinion. But thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.